All right, Jajabor. Hey, you covered a lot of territory in this video, and this video is called Atheism, Theism, and Human Progress. You covered a lot of territory, man. I can't possibly cover that much or elaborate on all that much. You went through a lot. Okay, so I've already wasted 19 seconds explaining why I don't have time, and I have diminishing time to address it. You know, I don't know if it's engineering, Jajabor. The universe has order and a set of rules. A set of rules for matter and energy, and it definitely has order. And then we see, that these rules allow combinations to occur, atomic or molecular combinations to occur, and at some point, what appears to be inert matter starts to it becomes alive. Now at what point do you add one extra atom and something becomes alive or something becomes life? I don't know. I mean, defining life is very difficult, but in any event, plants would be the first, and they're merely learning how to basically bind energy. It's kind of interesting. Life seems to be self-interested. Plants, for instance, occur. They bind the energy from the sun. They grow, and they're individual things. Putting aside the situation of reproduction and going over millions and millions of years and billions of years and skipping all that, I don't know. You end up with animals. Now I don't know whether I guess plants. Some plants learn life. After it stops just living on the sun, starts to live on other life. In a way, life becomes sort of parasitic on itself. It starts to eat other life, and that's sort of the stage we have now. Animals eating other animals, animals eating plants, plants even eat plants. I don't know whether maybe it begins as just a defense system where, there's plenty of resources, and then a plant, maybe there's a diminishment of energy. It has to get its energy somewhere else. It's got a defense system to keep away another plant, and then it figures out some way to digest the other plant, and suddenly you have life eating life instead of life just, living as solar receptor. What's curious to me is that the rules of the universe, if we call them rules, contain the possibility of life, the potential for life, in the atoms, in the molecules, in the matter, whatever it is. I mentioned in another video, these are just models that we use, mental models that we use to comprehend something mentally, which is really in reality a mystery. But we sometimes become transfixed with our models, and we're convinced that the models are an accurate reflection of reality or our reality until someone comes along and overturns it all, with some new theory and a new insight. So I don't know, but in any event, life through millions and millions of various combinations apparently can discover new strategies to live and exist and adapt, and it can be an ongoing dynamic adaptation where it's self-discovering, and it's discovering its environment, and it's adapting to its environment, and it's adjusting, and it is changing. So it doesn't really have to be engineered ahead of time like an architect would draw blueprints for a building and then build a building or build a remote control or something. Life seems to be able to experiment with combinations and even stumble onto solutions. Now, progress is a question. I'm not so sure about progress, man. I like to believe we're making progress, but I don't know. I read some of the old texts from a couple thousand years ago, and I look at it and I see people are saying the same thing they did 2,500 years ago. As far as atheism goes, I really have never met an atheist who was an atheist because he was enjoying either an immoral existence or some sort of existence of pleasure, and so therefore, did not want to, somehow rejected religion or became an atheist and rejected the concept of divinity. just never met one like that. I know there seems to be a common belief that there are people like that, but I just haven't met one. Um, I just haven't. Where are these guys? They should be living it up down the street in the bar, and I haven't seen any of them. And I've been in a lot of bars, man. Uh, in my misspent youth. So now I'm misspending my middle age, but I still haven't found any, man. Been looking 53 years. Uh, but the history of atheism, I mean, I think there were ancient Greeks who rejected the notion of divinity. I suppose you would call them intellectuals if we know about them. Somebody was writing about them, but um, I don't think I don't know if there's a progression in atheism. I really don't, and I don't know about the moral progression of man either. It is interesting what you mentioned. The evolution of religion. It's kind of interesting if you go back to the era where we were really ruled by fear. I think some of the earliest, if you look at the anthropology even, some of the earliest things were fear of nature, really, and fear of the forces of nature, and an attempt to control those. Uh, Really a form of magic, some attempt to exert control over the environment, um, but treating the environment as if it were alive in a way. It's kind of a communication or sympathetic magic. Also is akin to it. Um, but of course, it's not like science, which is dispassionate and doesn't try to communicate with nature. It's trying just to manipulate the laws of nature and looking at it as an objective, and I hate to say machine, but manipulating the rules and the laws to gain control of nature, to gain effects that they want. But magic was, I think, different. Quite a bit of fear, I think, and if you're and trying basically to communicate with what became then spirits, and then eventually, at some point, this changed into the concept of gods that could be communicated with, and at some point we got prayer, I guess. I don't really know, and I don't know how well it's documented paleontologically, or that's the wrong word, but who knows what evidence remains. But I wonder at what point, if there was always prayer, or whether prayer arose after magic, or whether prayer always existed, and what were people praying to, you know. But The concept of a god rather than a force of nature, that when that threshold gets crossed, you cross sort of into religion as opposed to some dealing with nature. There was also fear of ancestors, I think, too, um, and some feeling of connection with ancestors, maybe some ancestral magic going on, too. It's in the deep mists, man. I just don't know enough about it. But so in that sense, I suppose I would call that progress. I guess I would call that progress. I don't know. Progress is fascinating. And progress as movement, I mentioned in another video, as motion towards or change toward the better, towards a higher form of excellence. Where we get that concept, I'm not sure. I mean, it's a powerful concept. It's an important one. It's one I live by, um, and yet, a self-improvement, the idea that we can improve ourselves, is an interesting thing. We believe in that, right? I mean, we act like we believe in that, huh? Um, Plato did a dialogue on excellence. I guess the Greek word is kalos, which is a common, it has different connotations, but essentially the idea of excellence. And I think he concludes it was an early dialogue, I think, and he concludes the dialogue by basically saying, well, excellence is a difficult thing to define. He sort of breaks, people give various definitions, and he kind of breaks them down and shows that those are inadequate. But he doesn't actually come up with a definition of it. Brainout, she actually has ties it into a definition of divinity, of God, as excellence, the highest form of excellence, which I think is a very, very interesting approach, because I don't usually hear that approach towards that as a definition of God. So that is very interesting, because then if we're moving towards excellence. We're necessarily moving towards divinity. I don't know, fascinating. I'm out of time, my friend. Great video. Sorry I couldn't cover all the 50,000 subjects you covered. Okay, bye.